Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste and a very warm welcome to all of you to the Blub World Web Talks 254th episode. In the last 253 episodes, we have talked to, interacted with more than 4,000 school leaders on this very platform, where they've shared their ideas, opinions, innovation, and what all new are they doing in the education space. तो नमस्कार, आप सभी का स्वागत है ब्लब वर्ल्ड वेब टॉक्स के 254वें एपिसोड में। पिछले 253 एपिसोड्स में हमने करीबन करीबन 4,000 से ज्यादा शिक्षाविदों से बातचीत की और उनसे जानने की कोशिश की कि वो शिक्षा को कैसे बदल रहे हैं और शिक्षा उन्हें कैसे बदल रही है। So today as well, when we are coming together for the next 30 to 40 minutes, we'll try to discuss something superbly interesting, going a little bit away from our typical education conversations that we do. We're going to explore another dimension of things, which is something that's very important in the India as a country, because in India, any organization that makes a certain amount of profits or has a turnover beyond certain amount has to devote 2% of their profits towards CSR, which is called corporate social responsibility. So all of the big corporates normally spend this money for social welfare. They put it towards, education. They put it towards development. They put it towards whatever they seem is fit for the society and for its welfare. Today, we are going to explore an aspect of it which typically corresponds to the World Teen Parliament. Because at the World Teen Parliament, we have teenagers from all over the world who fight an election, come into power, and every year we try to understand from them how do they think policy making should be done? What do they think is important for the society? What do they think is important for them and the future generations? So today on this topic, we'll try to know that should teenagers, basically the future generation, be involved in the decision making of how this corporate money or the CSR funds should be utilized. Let's start this conversation, something superbly interesting, that youth led CSR, that should teenagers be allowed or even talked to or consulted how to should companies really spend their CSR funds. So let's start with our first guest for today. A very warm welcome to Mr. Amit Sharma, the Chief Information Officer and Head CSR and Partnerships at Cytecare Cancer Hospitals, Bengaluru, Karnataka. Amit, over to you for the next 3 minutes and a very warm welcome.
Thank you, Daksh, and thanks for inviting me for this group of talented individuals, especially teenagers. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to connect with the youth out there. So your topic is actually very, very interesting and a little close to my heart because even though I work in a corporate, but I spend at least 20 to 25% of my time in interacting with schools and college students. I think the idea itself of a youth-led CSR is something which is the need of the hour because the youth whom we are speaking to, they are the futures of tomorrow, and the CSR, by virtue of involving them in some of those community initiatives, some of those initiatives which has a potential to shape the policies of the government. I think it has a definite potential of developing the leadership within the next generation community. So in that perspective, I would say definitely uh, they in the CSR or connecting the students with the CSR leaders of corporates is a wonderful idea. Now, why do I feel that it is a wonderful idea? Youth carry a fresh perspective. I mean, they're always, I would say, risk taking. Their risk taking capacity is very, very high. Whereas for people in business, they always think twice, thrice, maybe five times of doing something. So because they carry less burden and they are always full of energy, so they carry a fresh perspective. So I feel that when they will work with the CSR community leaders of corporates, they will probably get with some better ideas, some ideas which are more, I would say, pragmatic, which can help in actually shaping up the CSR strategies of the organization, which typically the leaders sitting in their cabins might not be able to think of.
So much, Amitji, and you're very right that let's take CSR from the cabin to the classroom. Let's see what the teenagers have to say. Because you're very right when you say teenagers have a very high risk appetite because they haven't seen the world, they haven't faced the challenges. So they bring in a very different kind of a perspective. When you try to, make it into a layman's conversation, they add a lot of spice to the ideation. They add a lot of spice to kind of innovation that can be done. You're very right. A lot of CSR funds goes towards education, it goes towards development, sustainability. And these are things where teenagers of today have superbly, hard opinions. They want to say it out loud that, okay, I think this is something that should be done. So this is a conversation that must be started. So let's now bring in a teenager to basically make it a hopping roller coaster ride during the complete conversation. A very warm welcome to Miss Yana Suresh, who's a grade 11 student from Amity International School, Noida, Uttar Pradesh. Yana, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself and a very warm welcome.
Evening, everyone. Imagine a world where people shaping corporate social responsibility are young and passionate minds ready to make a real difference. I, Yana Suresh from Amity International School, Noida, Uttar Pradesh, India, firmly believe that CSR will become more effective if teenagers lead the way because they themselves are CSR, committed, sensitive, and revolutionary. Teenagers today are change makers. We have grown up in a world facing climate change, inequality, and social injustice. Teenagers are surely not driven by profit margins, unlike corporate leaders in general. We are deeply connected with issues through social media and real life experiences all around us. Environmental sustainability can be a perfect example. For instance, companies tend to launch CSR initiatives and still continue with harmful practices. Now, if teenagers were in charge of the following issue, we would have focused on ending the harmful practices instead of just plainly whitewashing. Similarly, gender inequality is an issue which we have first hand experience in. Hence, we are the best to support movements like these and bringing a change at the ground level than just advertising it on media. Yes, teenagers do lack business experience, but CSR is about maximizing impact, not profit. Through new and innovative ideas, we can make a large impact. For example, Malala Yousafzai's education campaigns or Greta Thunberg's climate movement, etc., have proven that young voices can mobilize global action.
Thank you so much, Yana. I think some very nice acronyms you gave throughout to CSR. A very new perspective to whatever we are having a conversation around. Before I actually move to the next speaker, sometimes teenagers get swayed by the emotion of it. Please don't take offense of it, anyone. Because experienced CSR professionals are there on this call. So we understand that you bring the kind of, you are there because you have that expertise, but bringing teenagers into the conversation takes it to a completely new level. Thank you so much, Yana. Let me invite the next speaker for today. A very warm welcome to Ms. Anupam Nidhi, the Head of Corporate Social Responsibility for Vedanta Group and Hindustan Zinc Limited from Udaipur, Rajasthan. Anupamji, over to you for the next 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself and a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much, Daksh, and good evening to everyone. I'm so happy to be here, and as Yana said, the committed, sensitive, as well as the revolutionaries in this forum and the forums where it is being reflected. Very valid. I don't know who comes out with these ideas, Daksh, but should teenagers decide how companies give back? Yes, definitely. They even now have a role to play, and I'll tell you how. But let me just establish and take it forward from what previous speakers spoke about. For me, what resonates and why they should be there in the picture should be one, out of box thinking. They think very differently, as we also talked about. You mentioned about sensitive, Yana. Definitely, the social quotient is far higher than anybody else around. You are a different breed altogether. No doubts about it. Emotional intelligence is also on the very highest peak. I think this is a complete different generation that we are seeing evolving. So catching them young, pretty early on in this space is only going to give us more ideas, more suggestions, more insights, because ultimately the future belongs to you. So what we are together doing is to garner that what we have today for a beautiful future ahead for all of you. Clearly, I think those are very important perspectives, and I think ultimately what I have seen, and we have done that pretty much, and I'd like to spend next 2 minutes on that, is to engage and empower the youngsters. I think catching them early on with early on inputs brings in a lot of wonders around that. But what we have been doing thus far, let me just bring in a little perspective to it. When we do a need assessment or a baseline, or is to establish what kind of programs we should take on, there are a lot of organizations in the CSR space which have been focusing on reaching out to the youngsters in schools or otherwise in communities to figure out what are they looking in for and how are they looking in from the larger perspective of development. some instances of programs which came out as a result of some of the discussions through social parliament or the youth parliament that we did in schools was how to modernize, create model villages, look at sanitation as a perspective, and where they had their voice, they spoke about it and just stood by it. And hence the programs got channelized in that direction, in that orientation.
Yes, you're very right when you say that, yes, definitely a teenager cannot implement things on that scale, but yes, they can have an opinion on it, and it is good to have an opinion on it so that the conversation quality increases. The teenager brings in that, revolutionary kind of thought process that, just break down things that are going on. They try to focus more towards disruption than finally solving a problem. But I think this approach at least, breaks that boardroom boredom. It brings in new kind of energy into those discussions. So thank you so much, ma'am. Let me invite the next speaker for today. Let's bring another teenager to spice it up once again. A very warm welcome to Miss Kinley Yangden, who's a grade 12 student from Gazelo Higher Secondary School from Thimphu, Bhutan. Kinley, over to you for the next 3 minutes and a very warm welcome.
I'm Langton from Gazelo Higher Secondary School, Thimphu, Bhutan. Imagine a world where teenagers like us take the lead in deciding how companies give back to society. It sounds crazy, but I don't think so. In fact, if teenagers were given a role in incorporating social responsibility, it will be more effective and more meaningful. Now, the biggest question comes up, why? Because we understand to this problem firsthand, youth unemployment, mental health challenges, and the growing environment concern. Those are the issues that affect us directly. For instance, in my country, the youth unemployment rate for the fourth quarter of 2024 stood 17.7% and increasing from 16.5% of the previous quarter, highlighting a struggle many of us facing in finding stable job. On the other side, mental health challenges, especially among the young people. But still, there is limited access to the mental health resources in the rural areas. And the other part is climate change concern. It's the urgent issues. Our glaciers are retreating and we are already facing many instant flood. They are not just distant problems we hear about. They are a reality who is better in showing solution than those who experiencing the impacts. We are also connected than ever. Social media is our platform and we know how to use it to spread the awareness quickly. The CSR project led by We Teenagers won't just be the small initiative. It could spark the national movement for change, revolving across rural and urban area alike and bringing the real impacts.
Yes, you bring in the new energy, you bring in the new ideas. And when we really want to make the future bright, let's involve the future in the conversations. Let's not teenagers be staying away when we really want to build a future that they will be living in. Because whatever we currently envision, whatever happens to us as adults, they are the ones who will be facing the future ahead. So it's far more relevant to bring them in the conversation, bring them in decision making, and in the process, give them an opportunity to learn, to get exposed to a completely new aspect of life, to a new aspect of jobs, to a new aspect of professions. Because just becoming a part of this conversation will give them an idea of how vast the kind of opportunities that are available to them. So thank you so much, Kinley. Let me invite the next speaker for today. Now let's bring in a school principal that what do they think on it? What's their opinion on it? That does it, because they're the people who are handling the erraticness of a teenager. They are the ones who are handling so many teenagers. It's very difficult to handle them as a school principal. They are so superbly revolting all the time. It's very difficult to manage them in a classroom. So let's try to understand from a school principal that what do they think? Should teenagers be involved in decision making with organizations where they take a call on CSR? A very warm welcome to Mr. Veerendra Kumar, the principal of Cambrian Public School from Ranchi, Jharkhand. Veerendra ji, over to you for the next 3 minutes and a very warm welcome.
Namaskar to everyone, and thank you, Daksh ji, for giving me this opportunity. And I think it's a very crucial time and an important topic that teenagers should have their hand in CSR. Why? Because teenagers are the future generation makers and they must be given that opportunity that they should decide how and why the company should give back. Because it is their word. They have to rule the world. They have to make the policies. Then, and one more thing, that by heart they are more purer than us, than adults.
You're very right. बच्चों को, if you'll have to provide them the platform, you'll have to give them the space, make them a part of decision making, because teenagers have a lot of energy in them. And the problem is they don't want to be taught. They don't want to listen to adults. So the best way to really engage a teenager is to give them challenges. When we want a developed future, when we want it very soon, we have seen it across the world that disruption a lot of times paces up growth. So why not bring a teenager into that boardroom to understand that yes, these are some more avenues where we could spend the CSR money and make it more effective. At least bringing them in the conversation will make it far more interesting, far more meaningful for everyone. Thank you so much, Veerendra. Let me invite the next speaker for today. Let's bring in a teenager once again. A very warm welcome to Mr. Arsh Gupta, who's a grade 10 student of Alcon Public School from Delhi, India. Arsh, over to you for the next 3 minutes and a very warm welcome.
Thank you, sir. Hello, guys. Welcome to the world of CSR, where teenagers are going to control the CSR. Hello, guys. My name is Arsh Gupta. I am from Alcon Public School, a student of 10th grade from Delhi and India. See a world where teenagers rule CSR who have innovative minds and ideas, and they bring fresh perspective and innovative ideas to the table. Teenagers are innovative thinkers who are known for their creativity and out-of-the-box thinking. They always have newly developed ideas in their minds and have innovative solutions to the social and environmental challenges. Teenagers are digitally savvy and understand the power of social media. That's why they have a large confidence and they can put forward their opinion between a large crowd. They have very strong willpower and are capable of raising up awareness about social causes and engage with stakeholders more effectively. Teenagers are very passionate about the work they do. They can do a work 10 times better than adult when they are passionate. They can do many works energetically. Teenagers from different perspectives bring about different opinions that can help to implement and make a CSR more effective. But if there are some ups, there are also some downs. If teenagers are in charge of CSR, they might lack the experience and expertise they might need to implement a CSR. They may not have access to the resources that the CSR professionals have. Teenagers would focus more on short-term gains rather than long-term gains. And teenagers may have communication challenges with the stakeholders, investors, and etc. But there are some challenges to be considered, and we can say that there's some solutions for this. Mentorship can help teenagers to get some experiences from the CSR professionals. They could be paired up with them and they could assist them in the work they are doing with them, which could help them bring more ideas and expertise in the CSR table. Thank you.
Let me invite the next speaker for today. A very warm welcome to Dr. Alok Nikhil Jha, who's the coordinator for innovation at Indraprastha Institute of Information Technology, Delhi. Alok ji, what's your opinion on this?
Thank you, everyone. And very excited to hear the inputs from the kids. And I could relate when I was kid, these opportunities were not there. However, I deal with industry and students both. So I work with all the corporates to help them plan CSR, sometimes to route to IIIT Delhi and their initiatives. And I'm actually engaged with the students a lot. And I'm very happy about this topic, which is raised, on this platform, because I do a lot of hackathons with student groups, first year, second year student groups, not directly talking about how to, get corporate money invested, but indirectly that if we get some kind of fund, what could be the social challenges or challenges that we as a people would like to solve. So I do a lot of social hackathons. Based on that, generate idea, build proposal, and go back to the industry requesting for funds around some of those proposals, and some of those actually worked perfectly well. So I heard everybody and very happy to say that yes, we have to ensure that students are or teenagers are given the opportunity to think around various areas. And that will help them with the maturity that eventually make them ready to go into the boardroom. So boardroom is something like, I would say it's the boardroom. And with the students interaction, some of them I have found that they are kind of quite mature and able to think logically around it. So yes, giving them an opportunity is one part and responsibility is other part. So I'm a strong supporter of giving them the opportunity, at least think what could be done, and then let them be into the car, not drive the car, and help them grow around it, around that part, because they can bring the value. So we have done couple of good initiatives. So in one of the hackathon, something came up that about the cyber crimes happening in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Could we empower the girls over there in some or the other way, so that they can train the local people in the villages, girls in the villages? So that came as a part of social hackathon, and we actually pitched it to Oppo. Oppo applied this as their CSR opportunity, and they run a program called Cyber Sangini, wherein they actually train the girls, the teenager girls, who are again as a face to the village, help the old people if they get any messages and around that. And this idea came from one of the first year student at Triple IT Delhi, again a teenager.
Alokji, I think you're also experimenting in the same space, trying to figure out how can teenagers really get involved in ideation and problem solving. I think it's very easy for a teenager, for people who are outside that CSR boardroom, to really take a knack at it. That yes, they should be involved in the conversation. But when you are in the shoes of somebody who has to handle that multi-billion-dollar just to make social impact, and when a lot of people around you are looking at every single step that you are taking, so they understand that bringing a teenager into the conversation could bring in a lot of risk. So do you think, do the CSR heads really think that is there a mechanism where we could contain that risk, still allow that discussion around disruption, and make them a part of the conversation on how to spend CSR money? Because when we look at India, where CSR is a big thing right now, we all know, from policymakers to people doing events to people doing social impact things to NGOs, everyone is interested in that fund. So that really brings a lot of eyeballs to it. So what do the CSR heads have to think about it? Let me invite the next speaker for today on this. That do they think we can involve a teenager in discussions for how to spend the CSR money? A very warm welcome to Mr. Kumar, Anurag, Pratap, the Vice President and Head CSR for Capgemini from Mumbai, Maharashtra, India.
Thank you, Daksh. I'm like, why? The question is, I'm like, let them enjoy. Why we want to give them stress that happens in the boardroom? This is a time for them to dream and create their own canvas there. I really, it's very nice analogy that Dr. Jha brought in there, that let them navigate the journey there rather than drive the journey there. Because it's huge amount of pressure room that boardroom has there. And I'll love to see. I'm right now sitting in a I'll say sports arena where my daughter is learning skating there, and she literally forced me to join her. They have the ability to force you to do certain, facilitate the thinking to go in a different manner. They bring in these solutions which are needed in present context. They are the one who will give you the glimpse of how to solve one particular problem from the present day lenses rather than our fossil age lenses that we sometimes apply there. And that's what I love to see. And there are a number of instances where we have done that particular project where they helped us what is called solve some of the issues. They helped us help us think differently out of the box, because their approach to life and their approach to problem solving is very different from our approaches, our way of looking at problems, our way of looking solutions there. So that's where I love to see them. But to I'll say push them to the boardroom and you understand what we are talking about right now. It's like asking someone who is enjoying his own journey and trying to figure out how to paint the beautiful canvas that life has given it to him or her in a most innovative manner. Push him or her to a more, I'll say, regimented space there where you are supposed to think, operate, and function in one particular constructed manner itself. That will be killing the innovation at the early stage.
Thank you so much, Kumar. And I think you bring the right kind of energy to the table. What we are really trying to say that when we have serious conversations, let kids be around, let them break that super serious energy. Let's make the conversation a little lighter. And you're very right. Don't give them the pressure of the boardroom, but at least them a part of the conversation. It's always we think that a child might not be able to handle the complexity of a challenge, but the good part about it is, for us, it's complex. For a teenager, it's really simple to break down challenges because the best part is they don't come with that environmental prejudice. All the adults have a permanent prejudice that they have to follow. They're trained in a particular block. They have to carry that block because that's the requirement of the job. But yes, teenagers can bring in a lot of fresh energy to the table. So now we have listened to all the speakers today. Now it's the time for an open floor. So before I invite anyone next, let me pose a question to everyone who's here, and whoever wants to answer, can just raise your hand so that I can invite you to speak. Do you really think that a teenager is far better connected to the on ground reality than the CSR professional or the experienced people that we have in the organizations? We are not discounting the experience that they bring, but do you think a teenager can bring a far more, reality driven opinion into this conversation? So let's have the opinion of some of you on this. That do you really think a teenager can bring a little more of reality to the boardroom? I think I would want to hear Amit ji on this first, and then we'll go to Virendra ji.
Absolutely. As I mentioned to you, I mean, I have a live examples within our own ecosystem within the hospital. As you know, I work in a cancer hospital, and for us, the biggest challenge was, people don't sometimes relate the awareness to the corporate social responsibility. But I think in the space of cancer, I think raising awareness itself is half the battle won, because if you are able to raise awareness and make people more aware, and so that they get into the screening mode, we are able to kind of catch the disease early, and then we can save more life. So real example in our own system, when we talk to 100 adults, hardly one or two people act. When we talk to 100 kids, at least they ensure that 20 adults act. So that itself is a live example that this conversation with students, young generation, will have a definite lasting impact on the CSR policies of.
Greater stimulus. They can stimulate adults to start acting on anything that we want. But this same conversation has another side of it as well. That if we really involve teenagers in these discussions, we bring in a lot of risk attached with it. Over to Anupam.
Uh, to your first question, I think there's no competition here, and there's no one against competing against the other. It's coexisting, and it's also appreciating the other's viewpoint. It just so happens that they are much younger and we are with more gray hair, but then they may come in with very, very valid and simple solutions. But there's always a risk of exposing them too early, too soon, on certain vagaries of and harshness of life. While yes, it's good to expose them, and they are, as I said, they have a very high SQ also, the social quotient that I see in today's kids. You just saw Anurag's daughter coming in, and she was very confident on the screen. She didn't know who all are there. She could see probably many faces, but she was very confident, and so much so that I could see she was also in her own zone, figuring out herself pretty much. So I think that's the confidence that the kids today exuberate.
Have to always determine the scale of involvement, the kind of scope of involvement, because that's something that could, even negatively impact the mentality of a teenager. Because what we have seen is that uh, when you go into decision making, and especially CSR decision making, when there's a complex challenge, there is a complex stakeholder engagement. At that point, there are a lot of involved interests. Virendra ji wanted to add something. Virendra ji, do you really think a teenager can bring some reality to the boardroom? What's your opinion on this?
A teenager can bring some positive changes. Because being an adult, because we are involved in the society's decisions and society's all the belongings. So being an adult, we can undermine those minorities, but a teenager can't. अब एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल मान लीजिए, you are going somewhere in your car with a teenager, and the particular one will not allow you to throw a glass of paper outside the car window. She'll compel you to put it into the dustbin. है ना? Because they are pure at heart, they are more attached to the ground realities.
When you really say that they take a lot of onus in things, they really believe that the world is mine. So let me take a call on this. You don't get to, ruin a world that I'll have to live in because of your carelessness or your attitude towards life. It's very important that they bring this. I think there's one concluding question before we move ahead. It's very difficult right now for large organizations to engage, employ, and bring out productivity from Gen Z. What we are talking about really, even goes beyond Gen Z. It goes into Gen Alpha, and we trying to, going further. It's getting very difficult to put them through a process. Gen Z takes over the CSR boardroom. What kind of issues will they be bringing to the table?
No, I say, as somebody kind of mentioned, probably Ms. Nidhi, that I mean, our perspective is very, very narrow. We are just sitting in our glass holes, and we have visibility, to be honest, majority of time on our own work areas or our own sort of a sphere of influence, which we are just cocooning around. I mean, the when we get Gen Z represented in our boardroom, the opportunity is enormous. It's endless, and as I mentioned, they are grounded. They're all over, and I see a lot of innovative ideas, lot of areas where we can't even imagine. Forget about thinking of solutions out there.
So much, Amitji. You're very right that the possibilities are endless. So at the World Teen Parliament, the reason why I'm mentioning this, because since the last 3 years, we've been operating something called the World Teen Parliament, where every year teenagers from all over the world participate and 100 get elected as MPs. This year at the World Teen Parliament, we have teenagers from more than 35 countries. And we're very happy to share that this year the World Teen Parliament has been invited to the G20 summit in South Africa to engage the leaders on voting as a skill that we work on very actively. So the reason why we brought this topic was to really think of creating a forum where the CSRs really listen to a teenager. Because at the moment, we have created a forum where the actual policymakers from these countries are listening to these teenagers at the World Teen Parliament. So if you think, as an audience, as a CSR head, as a school leader, as a student, that you really need such a forum, do write to us, comment on the YouTube video that you might be seeing. If you are there on the Zoom call, do tell it to us. We'll try to figure out how can we have far more meaningful conversations. And thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this. Namaste. Have an amazing evening ahead.